Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hi friends and welcome back to my channel, and today I am so excited to be bringing you my adaptation review of Heated Rivalry and compare and contrast it with the brilliant TV show of the same name that I think a lot of us are under the psychosis of right now. Okay, it's real. But to be clear here on this channel, when I talk about a book to TV or movie adaptation, I really truly am looking at how accurate it is, right? Like, I don't do this very often. I only do it for a few because in general, I find that adaptations are so far off the mark that they're not really worth my time talking about. I've just done it for so few. But the main one that I'm probably known for around here is probably Outlander. I've been doing Outlander adaptation reviews for, I don't know, 5 years at this point is when I started. I think the Outlander TV show has continued to hold up pretty well to how it's been doing adaptations, and I really wasn't planning to do one for Heated Rivalry. I wasn't even aware that this adaptation existed before Thanksgiving. I mean, I know I'm not the only one, so it's not like I was so far behind with everything, but I truly had no idea this adaptation was going to happen or what was going on. But I quickly rectified my ways, and I still was unsure whether I was going to make this video, but I had people asking for it. And as I continued to watch the show unravel, I decided that I would see how I felt once the show was all done. And then I continued to wait until I actually got my copy in my hands, because of course I did have the ebooks, but it took a good ass long time to get my copies of Heated Rivalry and The Long Game in, because Harlequin, as I think we all agree, dropped the balls. Pun intended, we'll just go with that. Drop the balls. And also, where are our tie-in covers? There's not even an announcement for that coming. Like, what the heck is happening? And I have just finished a rewatch of all the episodes. I did a detailed rewatch, like literally, I rewatched and marked where each episode started. I flagged where each and every scene that is directly from the book into the show. I highlighted not only the scene, but where each dialogue and like scene note comes directly from the book. I mean, I'm not going to go through every single thing of that with you guys, but I mean, so that I can speak to how accurately I feel like it was adapted, which again is the same thing I do for Outlander. Again, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to structure this review in just a moment, but just sharing the background of this. I wasn't sure that I was going to do it because of like that. And also, I've been watching so many other people kind of do like reactions and stuff. But again, when things were like all done, when it's over and all that, I realized that I do still have something to add to this conversation, mostly because I'm a romance book reviewer. That's what I do. And again, the times when I do reviews of shows that are, you know, book to film or book to TV adaptation, that's what I want to talk about, is how accurately something went from the page to the screen, and if they kept the essence of the romance there, and if they, if they were just going for a cash grab, or if they were just, taking this property that was popular and trying to take advantage of like the book talk popularity or like whatever. Like, those were all the things that like I was like looking at. Whereas a lot of the other videos I've seen, which by the way, I've enjoyed, touch on that again in a second, are a lot of people discovering this who are sharing the value of like feeling seen in the property, which I find so beautiful, and I think is a whole other thing that like I can't relate to, but I have found very humbling and have learned so much in watching happen, and are just a lived experience that I myself will never ever have. So that was why I was like hesitating too, because I was like, ooh, is this a discussion that I should even have? But I have spoken about romance and poly romance and monster romance. Like, I have talked about all types of romance my entire time on BookTube, and so this shouldn't be any different when we're talking about adaptation wise. But what it does mean is that, like I said, in the description of this video, and I really encourage you that if you end up like watching the show, there are some YouTubers that I would highly encourage you go watch like their reactions to this and their breakdowns of this show, including some queer creators. There is even there was even a Russian YouTuber I just watched the other day who talked about the Russian representation, neurodivergent representation, like I said, the queer representation, different people reacting to the show. But I've only seen a few people that I've watched who were book readers first, like myself, who were people who'd even like read the books like way before, which again, I will talk about that some in just a second, how much I was aware of the series before, because I was aware, I just didn't know that I was aware, and we'll talk about that parts of it when we talk about the structure of this. So anyway, I besides being asked by my viewers to discuss it and talk about if I think they should read it first, watch it first, what order you should read it, and all that stuff, so, of course, I knew I wanted to talk about it, and also I just genuinely love it so much that, you know, I've talked about it in multiple weekly wrap-ups. It's come up in my favorites videos. Like, I've been talking about it a lot, that I just wanted to make videos that are fully dedicated to it, where I don't have to be like, pardon me while I take a caveat about Heated Rivalry. I want to just gush about it, but then also talk about like technically, literally how I think it's so well done, and not just gushing about it, like actually do that and talk about more spoilery details in that effect as well. Let's see, what else? What other intro points do I want to say? But that's what I want to say going up, is that I obviously can't speak to the representation part of it. I'm going to be talking about the, like, how well it went from the book to the screen, and what I think, what nuances were picked up and what were missed. But I obviously can't speak to the representation part of it. I think that has to be left up to people who have lived that experience and who are, you know, going to be able to relate to that. So that's why I'm going to leave links to some creators that I've been watching and just absolutely enjoying their thoughts on it. And again, that I've learned and I've cried with them, watching with them, and just been really just gotten so much perspective from it, and it's all just mixed up in my feelings for this property as a whole. So this is definitely not an unbiased review at all. Like, just know that going in. Like I said, this is in my favorites list. This is in like all of that. It's all there. So just know that. But what I will do by the end of this is tell you, like, honestly, like, who I think this is for, how you'll like it, like those things. I can, you know, I can step back enough to tell you those things of it. But yeah, that's where I'm planning to go with this. And then, as I've said, I'm going to make 2 videos that have to do with this. But this one's going to be just all about the TV show and the book, and like comparing that, and a little bit at the end we'll be speculating about future seasons and where I think they're going. I'm excited to do that. And then with the possibilities of, in, you know, it's looking to be 2027, you know, because Outlander will be fully done then. Maybe I will do episode breakdowns like I did with Outlander for season 2 of this, because I won't have Outlander to do that for anymore. Although we will have Blood in My Blood to do that for. Those ones won't be like book to show adaptations anymore, because that's all made up stuff. So anyway, that is something we'll have to see if people want from me. But like I said, I just wanted to, like, and not that anyone would come to me first over anyone else, but I just wanted to leave space for the show to be over and for people to find the creators who were, like, own voices as it is type of thing. That, maybe that's the wrong say, but like in the space to, get the attention of it first, and just also take my time to process it, because it's just so much. And like, this last month has been so completely, for me, consumed by this. If you follow me on Instagram, like, I haven't been able to form coherent thoughts about things that don't revolve around this show and these books. It's been almost impossible. I read 4 fan fictions that have to do with Shane and Ilya. I've read these books 2+ times. I've watched the show through since it's done twice since then. I've watched each individual episodes so many goddamn times. I can't even, like, it's nuts. So anyway, that's my 10-minute long intro. Oh, I love it so much. But let's kind of get into this. Like I said, I'm going to go through a few things here. How I'm going to go through it. I have 6 points I'm going to try to, like, get to with this. I'm going to go through what is this, the TV show part of it, about, like, the who's and the what's and the where's, the how accurate it is. Number 4, should you read it or watch it first? Number 5, should you start with book 1 or book 2 first? 6, should you jump right from book 2 to the long game? And then a couple other, like, little details. And then at the very end, like I said, we'll talk about season 2 and things like that. Okay? So that's kind of where we're going to go. Hopefully I stay focused, like I said. As I'm caveating all videos lately, like, brain fog's been a little bit of an issue right here for me now. It's another reason why I've been intimidated about making videos like this, because I know it's also going to bring in some people who are probably not my, like, normal watchers, and that also scares me a little. So if you're new to my channel, hi, I'm sorry. Like I said, my name is Jen. I'm a romance-focused channel. That's what I do. I also, like I said, I do some, like, show review, but it's mostly, I mean, not mostly, it is only for, like, romance stuff. And by that I mean, like, I've done Outlander, I've done Bridgerton before, and I stopped doing Bridgerton when Bridgerton, like, stopped following the books. And I've done a couple other things in the past. So I'm gonna stop, like, holding Heated Rivalry up because I gotta flip through some things here too. So let's start though with what is it? Okay, I have my Kindle Scribe here with my notes, so I'm gonna set that down here. So the Heated Rivalry TV show is based on, if you don't know, the Game Changer series by Rachel Reid. And the Game Changer series is 6 books, but the first season is basically based off of Heated Rivalry with Game Changer, book 1, like, tucked into it a little bit. We'll explain here. And I actually have read Game Changer, which I totally forgot that I had. I actually read Game Changer in November of 2022, and I just had to pull this up because, again, this is I'm doing a, like, book to movie review here for you, or book to show review here. And I read, Scott and Kip is who that's about. And I read this in November of 2022. And this is my review, my cheeky little review. I gave it 4 stars, and this is what I said. I'm laughing so hard about this. When I found this, I wrote, I had a good time with this one. It was so sweet. I really enjoyed the meet cute and the beginning of their relationship. However, this type of romance is just too painful for me. And from what I've heard of the future books, I don't know if I will continue. That is what I said. Okay? Okay? So let's just have a little chuckle at Jen about that. But just to defend myself slightly, there's a couple things going on. It appears to me that if I'm right about this, I think the long game had, like, just come out. In fact, let me look here. Because this was a viewer suggestion when I read Game Changer. Let me double check here. I am right. Okay. So the long game had, like, just come out in 2022. And people were trying to get me to read Heated Rivalry. And this is before, like, the TV show wasn't even happening yet, as we're about to go into, of, like, it wasn't even happening, but people wanted me to get to the long game because, you know, they knew that I would people would know that I would like the long game. But because I'm a series stickler, I was like, I gotta start with Game Changer. But it's very angsty, and we'll talk about why. And it was like, this whole series, like, is basically, you know, repressed hockey players who have to hide their sexuality because it could hurt their careers, or maybe they're in denial about it anyway. It isn't even that they are, like, forced to hide. They don't even know, you know? And so anyway, I had read that, and I know I listened to the audio of that one because it was on AnyPlay at the time. And I had listened to it, I know, while I was making Christmas presents, and I didn't continue. So I never even made it to Ilya and Shane, which just, I just am laughing so much when I saw this review because I had no clue that when I started seeing all the ads of what this was, of Heated Rivalry, No clue. Not a single clue until, like, literally even when I, like, started this. I'm sorry, I'm already going off track, but this is my review of this. Because the journey of this too, of like, even once I started the show, I watched episodes 1 and 2 before I read the book. Okay, so that's the thing. But anyway, the show is based off of Heated Rivalry and Game Changer, basically, is where we're at. Okay, so that's the thing. That's what this is. Number 2, the TV show. So Jacob Tierney, wonderful God among men here. He reached out to Rachel Reid on Instagram in 2023, and you can look up interviews with him. Wonderful man. He says the lore of this, he'd actually read an article about how romance written by women was like going nuts. And apparently he heard about this one and he read it and he actually loved it. He felt really seen by it. He thought it was very romantic. He loved that there was romance where they were getting where gay and queer characters were getting happily ever afters. And he was like, if nobody's bought the rights to this one, I would be really pissed if someone else told this story. I want it. And so he reached out. And Rachel Reid, in interviews with her, she was really worried that if someone took this story that they would sanitize it. Oh, honey, was that never going to be a problem with this? Because to her, the sexual journey of the characters was very important. And of course, we're going to get into that because I absolutely agree. And it's one of the main problems with adaptations for romance anyway, because people just see smut as a joke. And if you're going to do a romance, you can't keep the sex in it and make it palatable, apparently, or else it's porn. And that's just not true. That's just not true. Which is just crazy to me too, because I'm like, in people's normal relationships, is sex not important in your relationship? Like, for a good part of it anyway? Like, is it not important? Like, anyway, whatever. So apparently in this, infamous thing, Jacob explained that, like, basically his whole vision for it to her. And I guess that ends up being really true to what he does. But so that was in November of 2023. He does that and he becomes the creator, writer, and director for this. So Craven Canada, which I guess is through Bell Media, whatever, all the stuff, you can look on the Wikipedia page or look it up if you want. But Craven Canada is who picks this up. And in January of 2025, this is announced, okay? In June, the production begins, or the other stuff is announced in March. In June, the production begins. And then, or like maybe it even finished, whatever, because in November, for like Thanksgiving, it starts coming out. We all know it finished on Christmas, okay? Which is nuts. We all know that. It finished in June and came out in November. Like, insane. We have our main actors who we all very much are in love with at this point. We have our Shane Hollander, our captain of the Montreal Metros, played by Hudson Williams. We have our captain of the Boston Raiders, played by Ilya Rozanov, played by Connor Story, the captain of the Boston Raiders. We have Scott Hunter, the captain of the New York Admirals, played by Francois Arnault, I believe. And then we have Kip Grady, our sweet and kind smoothie maker and art major, played by Robbie GK. So those are kind of the lead actors or whatever. And we've currently had a season 1 with a season 2 pickup, and our main 2 actors sign on for 3 seasons, but possibility of for sure season 2, though in a recent interview, the most recent one that I've seen, where he was on the What Chaos Hockey Podcast, Jacob Tierney's basically talking about season 2 and 3. And so the speculation for us all is that he's probably going to like write and plan season 2 and 3, because if all goes well, they could just, film all of those and get it to us. So okay, we won't talk about that, Jen. We're going to talk about that in the end if we're going to speculate. But anyway, so that's what we got with that, which is fantastic. So yeah. But the big question, number 3, is how accurate is it? How accurate is it? And I've got to tell you, my loves, it's pretty fucking accurate. Okay? It's pretty fucking accurate. Watching. So what I did, as I mentioned, is I rewatched this. Oh, such a chore. Such a chore. I rewatched this and I put a flag where each episode started here. Okay, so like episode 1. And then as I went through each scene, I would mark with a flag, and then I would highlight all the dialogue that was directly on the screen. Okay, and I did that, and then I would change when we got to the next episode. I'd put a new flag, and I'd start with a new color and do the scenes and their dialogue. I had Shane in blue and Ilya in yellow. And I did this through the entire book, okay? I obviously didn't do it with Game Changer because I didn't have that one. But I did this through the whole thing. Now, the biggest change here, honestly, and we're going into more detail, but the biggest way he was able to do this, because I tell you, my friends, it's pretty much the whole GD book, okay? It's the whole thing. The biggest cuts are in the last half. The man cut out a lot of sex in the ending, okay? And if you've watched the show, you'll know there isn't really any sex in the last 2 episodes, which is funny because for a show that gets, heckled endlessly by everyone now for all the sex, which... fair, because we see pretty much everything but a dick and balls in the first 2 episodes, which, by the way, as well, if you've watched or read any interviews with Jacob Turney, that was his choice, not a restriction by anyone else, really, because Crave didn't have those restrictions. That was a choice by Jacob to be like, this isn't about being gratuitous. It's about showing that, they start out the most physically stripped, but the most emotionally closed. And by the end, they are the most intimate with their hearts, and they may not be naked on the page all the time, right? Or on the screen all the time. So many things. We'll get into it. But he definitely gets people talking with it. And it's just, there's so much, you guys. It's so hard. But anyway, I'm starting with the telling you how accurate it is. So anyway, again, speaking for how I did my, how I was breaking this down to talk about how accurate it is. So I went through each episode, and he covers this much of this book. This is where he ended. Though, just to be clear too, a bunch of this book is, there's an extra scene in here. So he really only, he just didn't do one last chapter and then an epilogue. And then this is an extra scene, which, and these are all extra pages. So really he, does the whole book. It's wild. So because the book is split into 4 parts, and it covers, I believe, 8 years of their life. And he fits it into basically 5 episodes because one of the episodes focuses on Game Changer. Okay. So then the other thing I'll talk about just quickly before I get into this is that the episode 3, which throws a lot of people off, right? When you're watching it, because this is where the journey went for me. This is what was wild about it, right? Because, like I said, I totally forgot that I had read Game Changer. And I still forgot that I'd read Game Changer when I started watching Heated Rivalry. It was such a weird experience for me, you guys, because I was just seeing everybody posting the clips. And really what got me is I saw the clip in the showers. I know. But not even the clip of their butts. I'm not talking about the butts scene around the world. I'm talking about the scene where it's after that, when he's like, we can pretend this didn't happen. And Ilya's like, is that what you want? I'm not going to pretend to do Russian. I'm sorry. I'm not Connor Story, who can learn an accent in a week. And Shane's like, yeah, it's fine. He's like, what's your room number? And he tells him, and he's like, if I come there at 9:00. And he's like, I might open and I might knock. I saw that scene where he's adjusting his towel, and I was like, okay. And HBO was running their Black Friday sale where it was $2.99 for a year. And I was like, what the hell? I'll check this out. Still didn't understand what it was. So when I got home from Thanksgiving, I watched the first 2 episodes. And then I was like, oh my God, this is based on the books? And then I was like, oh my God, I've read one of these. And so, but even then still, I didn't register, oh my God, Scott and Kip. Like I still didn't remember the story, didn't remember that. But when I watched those first 2 episodes, right, and it ends on the Vegas scene with the we didn't even kiss, I was like, oh hell no, I'm not ending it there. And I bought the ebook, and then immediately, like, I bought the ebook and then immediately started with chapter 9, which is where part 3 starts. And I read, or where part 2 starts, and I read from part 2 to the end because I had to know what happened if I was going to keep watching this show, because I was like, where's this going to go? Because I didn't know. I hadn't read Heated Rivalry, and I was like, what is going to happen with this? So I immediately read the rest of Heated Rivalry, and then I immediately bought the ebook for The Long Game because people were saying, like, The Long Game is the rest of their story, because where this ends, you guys know as well, it's well, maybe you don't, but, like, it has a happy for now, kind of. If you watch the show, we'll talk about where this ends at, or where the show ends at. It's just a little bit different, but still an accurate place. Like, where the show ends, like, is a place in the book. It's not like he picks something that doesn't happen. He just kind of ends like, well, he ends at the end of a chapter, but he doesn't end at the end of the book. So anyway, we'll get to that. But I then immediately read The Long Game, and I was like, I'm obsessed. I'm absolutely fucking obsessed with this. And the way that he broke up the episode is something else we'll talk about too, because it's brilliant. But anyway, so then this is how the journey continues for me. So there's the 2 episode drop they give you, and now we're in this, the psychosis begins. The psychosis begins. The edits begin. The wallpapers begin. The absolute bonkers press tour begins. The content that's just Connor and Hudson constantly, the wild interviews, the thirsty tweets, the people obsessed with them trying to find out if they're sexual, all of this stuff just coming out, and hooked. Absolutely, we're fucking hooked. Like, just Twilight, hard mania again, but it's just hauling off all day, all night. This HUDCon, like, all the psychosis has us hooked in, right? And the weeks take forever, but also I've never had a December go so fast. It was so strange. Like, time lost meaning. It was just crazy. So I read the books, and then the next week we're just waiting for it to drop, right? We're back to, like, episode drops. It's so much fun. And then it's Kip and Scott. And I'm like, and it felt like deja vu. It was so crazy because I was like, have I seen this episode before? And again, I still at this point am not remembering that I've read that book. Even as I had just read Heated Rivalry, I didn't look back and, like, look at what Game Changer was. I just was so focused forward on Shane and Ilya that I didn't look back. And then I was like, oh my God, this is the one I've read before. And then all the things start clicking at once for me, where I'm like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Like, I had this moment of, like, Jacob Tierney is a fucking master. And while all these people who haven't read the books, which again, I haven't read all of them, but what's amazing to me is, like, I had read Heated Rivalry, so I do know what the kiss thing is going to mean. Like, I know what the kiss is going to mean to Shane and Ilya, but I forgot what it was like in Scott and Kip's book about, like, what that means to them. Because I was just like, oh, that's right. This kid, that's going to be a cute thing to see. But the fact that Jacob was putting them as a whole episode to be a payoff for later blew my fucking mind, because that is filmmaking. And the fact that, like, because we have week-to-week episodes, he had just built, I mean, for real, I mean, he couldn't know how bananas people were gonna be, but the fact that he had, like, started a psychosis with people that he couldn't have predicted, that people were gonna be so fucking obsessed with, like, Connor's story and Hudson Williams and with this, and then to, like, now people are having to wait 2 weeks to get more Shane and Ilya, is like, God, I just can't tell you guys. If you didn't live it with us, I don't know how to tell you that, because now you can just, like, yeah, there'll still be a little bit of that anticipation when you watch through the show, but like, when you're living the wait for that, it's like, gosh, I missed appointment television. Like, I know, like, we hate waiting for books and we hate waiting for things, but to be, like, collectively have to wait for something with people and then to get to experience it together is just, like, so, it brings a community together in ways you can't understand. I've went so far off my track of what this video is supposed to be. I'm so sorry. I told you I wanted a video to just gush about all of this and with the show involved with the book, because that's what the Hunter episode, like, gives you, because, like, by putting you through, not only is it just cute, okay? The Skip episode, you guys, the Hunter, the Scott and Kip episode is just cute, okay? Because, like, you just feel for Scott. You do. And, like, Shane and Ilya, they're sweet in their own way. Those horned up boys just trying to figure their shit out. I feel for them. I don't have a harsh word to say for those boys, okay? At each point in their journey, I understand where they are and why they make those choices. I think they're very clear in their characters. Both in the show, I think that it only takes a little bit of thought of, like, why a Russian, where he's from at the time as well, remembering 2008 to 2015 when their story's being told. Like, I don't know, you don't have to overthink it to know. The show doesn't have to tell you a ton for you to get that, right? So even when you're seeing him be a dick, like, some people get so uptight, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it only takes a little bit of thought. It doesn't take, JJ says like 2 lines about Russia and you get it. You get it. Like, Shane, it's not that he doesn't have a lot going on in his brain and, he has his neurodivergence and he has all these expectations, but at the end of the day, like, his parents love him and there's not a lot he could do to fuck stuff up with his parents. It's a lot of pressures that, like, he's chosen those pressures, right? Where Ilya's had he's had pressure thrust upon him and a lot of choices he didn't get to make. And hockey is the, like, only choice he gets to make, right? Whether we win or lose, whether I take the goal or not, whether I fuck this Canadian player or not. Like, those are the choices that he gets, right? And it's clear. But Scott and Kip are just, they're so sweet. So anyway, that choice is just wild. But some of the differences is what I meant to do with this one. But it's so wild to me how crazy accurate he's able to be. I think the biggest divergences actually do come with the episode 3. And a lot of that does have to do with the condensing of it. But what I think is wild is because, I did read my crazy little short review for you guys, right, about how I don't want to read more. After Game Changer, I didn't want to read more. And I know that is a wild thing to say for how I feel about it now. And a lot of it had to do with, like, I can't know what was coming ahead. And I do think that book was long. And there was a lot of times where, Kip has to put aside what he wants for Scott. And you're just seeing a lot. But also in that story, I know I'm comparing a lot of things here. The biggest issues are timeline stuff. That's wrong. And that's been admitted to, that they just, like, fucked up timeline stuff on the show. Like, nobody's truly, like, answered for it and said it, but, like, they've said, like, they messed up timeline stuff. And they probably shouldn't have had Scott having the realization about, like, he shouldn't have met Kip before the Olympics. Because the whole point of Kip and Scott's run to the cup is that Scott meets Kip in the books, like I'll tell you this, Scott meets Kip in the books in January of 2017. And he's on his losing streak. He's near the end of his career. And, well, not like end, but like he's a veteran. He's been here a long time, and he, you know, wants a cup win under his belt. And he goes into the smoothie shop on his run, meets Kip, and it's in January of 2017. And their story takes place between January and June of 2017. It's a short amount of time. And so really the struggle between whether Scott will come out for Kip is a 6-month time period. And so there are still those, like, you know, he's not asking him to move in after the first date, but they do, it is like an insta love, and it moves fast. There's a ton of sex in there. There's, you know, Kip is still from the same very welcoming environment. There's the Kingfisher. We get introduced to a lot of the gang that you see throughout the Game Changer series. You just see a lot of that stuff get set up in there, but things are just kind of starting to get rocky between Scott and Kip, and like it isn't this long drawn out yearning type of thing where Kip has been let down like again and again and again and again and again for years, which is what the show kind of would have to imply, right? So that's kind of like a change that has to be made. And hold on, I'll backtrack to that again in just a second. So in their book, their romance is a 6-month thing. And so Scott then kissing him at the Stanley Cup Finals, they are kind of this story then that it's still coming alongside Shane and Ilya. But you don't realize that probably when you're reading Heated Rivalry, because when you have read, if you were to read this series in order, which again, I did not do, okay, lies. I did read it in order, but I don't remember doing that because I read Game Changer 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And now I'm reading this, and I didn't even remember that. I wouldn't have remembered the timeline. I remembered nothing. I knew the show timeline, and it's only, you know, now when I'm doing research for this to tell you guys, like, the differences that I'm seeing this. So the way the show presents Scott and Kip is that they kind of do, like, a, like, backwards way, because the way we've been following Heated Rivalry is that same as the book, you get introduced to Rosenoff and Hollander when they're 17 in 2008. Before they've been drafted, they're in like the junior national, whatever. I'm not good at the hockey stuff. And you follow them, and at the point that Scott kisses Kip, they are kind of at like a do or die situation in their relationship, right? And so Scott obviously doesn't know, like no one knows between them, but between them, this has been 9 years of pining and longing, and it's getting to the point where they both know they're in love, but like they don't know if the other one is, and even if they are, what does it mean? They want more time together, but nothing's going to come of it, so like let's not do it. It's never going to work. And then this guy who's older than them kisses his boyfriend when he wins the cup. And it pushes Ilya to do this, right? To go to the cottage. And it's this beautiful, beautiful thing, right? And it doesn't matter how long Scott's been pining for Kip or what it is. Like the context to us in the show is that like we know they've been pining a long time. It doesn't matter. And the same thing in the book. It doesn't matter how long it's been. Whether it's been 6 months or 3 years for Scott, it doesn't matter. But the way that the show did this is, I wrote this down here. In the show, he meets Kip in before the Olympics, is what they said. Apparently, I had to go off of like Reddit for this. He meets him before the Olympics, and they have this little whirlwind thing. And then they've just, I guess, just been on again, off again, maybe seeing each other, maybe not. And now it's June of 2017. So it's been 3.5 years. So that's led people to some fan theories, which, I mean, I don't hate the fan theories. The thought that, like, Scott always leaves tickets for Kip to go to a game, or he left them because he made it to the Stanley Cup, and it was like, he didn't have anyone else to invite because he doesn't have anyone, so he left them for Kip and his friend and his dad. You know, those are all fan theories we can have, and that's fine, but that's kind of a big difference, but also it doesn't matter, because whenever he'd ended up meeting him, whenever they'd had that, they still have that. Whenever their love had happened, it still happens, and it still leads to the kiss at the same time. Like, whenever they'd met, whenever they fell in love, however long, it didn't happen. Scott's not out at the point that he comes out at then, and he still makes his speech at the awards at the same time, and it still leads to the cottage, which is what we need. So anyway, but in all honesty, for everything that I have done to, you know, let me talk about what's accurate, like, it's so accurate, it's hard to even point out differences. But okay, let's go through though, because I did take notes in each episode about what's different. And so I'll just list some of them, and then I'll just talk about how the show, like, enhances the book for me, because to me, that's what's most important. So a few changes, and honestly, I think a lot of them are good, but we'll talk about it. So, we don't start with the prologue. There's actually a prologue of the book that is in 2016. That lets you know right off the bat in the book that these two are already, like, fucking each other, basically. It actually starts, episode 4 actually starts the, like, prologue. Well, not starts the prologue. It's actually before he gets hurt, maybe, I think. Is that one? No. Episode 4, scene 1 is that one. It's when they're doing the montage of all the banging and things like that. But otherwise, let's see. The beginning scenes are kind of the same. In the book, Shane has tried having girlfriends before. In the book, Ilya's brother's name is Andre, not Alexei. In the book, let's see. Also in the book, Ilya doesn't have a niece or, like, a sister-in-law. It's also his, like, stepmother, who is, like, equally kind of as much of an issue as his brother. In the show, they really make, like, his brother's name is, like, Alexei, and he's more, like, pushing than him. I think Rachel Reid kind of said, like, again, I'm just pointing out a few things here. She points out that Ilya would probably struggle with, like, leaving his niece behind. You know, I know he says, like, he starts the trust and things like that, but he would probably struggle with leaving a child in this situation that he'd been in. So maybe we'll see if that is other divergence that happens in a future season from here, maybe. I don't know. Another change, again, these are small things we're, like, adding in here. They do put Scott in the, like, all-star game sitting by him. Like, Scott isn't in the hotel room next to them. They pop that in there, I think, just to, like, introduce you to Scott, probably before Scott's episode, because otherwise you don't see him. They definitely give Ilya some more, like, quirky lines that are totally iconic in the show, that are not, like the line, like, "Oh my god, Hollander, you are so boring." That's not in the book. Also having, like, Ilya not be able to go to Montreal, and Shane having dinner with, like, Hayden, like, at the end of episode 1, having that be, like, foiled. That doesn't happen in the book. So very little things, right? Literally, I'm just listing a few because when I was going through, I wrote down every little thing that was like different. And then you can see how I did this. Okay, so episode 1, I kept track here. I had such a goofy way of doing this, you guys. I was just trying to do like as much as I could, kind of, to like see. And so every time they like changed a scene, I named it a scene. So in episode 1, there was 17 scenes. So like distinct, like they were in like a different place on the other. There was 17 scenes that were directly from the book into the show. That's how accurate this was, okay? So many things. I think one of the biggest ones, I was going to put this here, is I believe that, I was going to write this. I believe they do have their first, like, full sex, like, Ilya fucks Shane fully for the first time a couple years earlier in the book than in the show. And I don't have, like, a problem with that. But I think in the show, I made a note of this, of like, they make that like extended for longer in the show before they have that first scene together. But yeah, okay. Then episode 2 was again another super banger of one, and that one had 10 scenes directly from there to there. Now with this one, okay, so another difference with like Ilya, so this is one that's talked about a lot too. They added a lot more to Svetlana in the show. This is a change that I actually like love so much. I love the actress who plays Svetlana. In the book, Svetlana is this woman who, she's an American citizen, but she is from Russia. Her father was a goalie or whatever from Russia. And she like sells cars, and that's how Ilya meets her. And so it is his like hookup buddy. But in the show, they were like, they've known each other since they were children. Her father is now like, he is, I think, like in like government or whatever in Russia. And so they have a closer relationship. So they're still like fuck buddies, but they have a closer kind of like deeper relationship, and she understands him. And she also basically knows about his bisexuality from a earlier point, like in the story kind of, which I love because it just, I don't know, it makes her a more like kind of like closer to a confidant to him, but still Ilya doesn't really have those anyway. But yeah. And okay, so yeah, then going into episode 2, but it is the same thing, like in this book, like there are huge time jumps in here, okay? And I love how the show does this, because in the book, it just will straight up, it goes from like the Vegas in 2011 to right up to December of 2013. And it's been 2 years, and now Shane and Ilya are 22. And in the show, like we still do that time jump, but it shows like the text messages and like the summers like going and everything. But I like how the show does it, because by the time like the title card has went, it's been 2 years, but like it makes it feel like, you know, you feel that they've still talked, they've still played game against one another, they've done something, right? But they definitely do that. So, but again, they have had, in the book, they have had sex before this point, and in the show, it's pushed way off more for longer. Something that the show does different is, already we see too of like Ilya when he went, a beautiful scene when Ilya wins the cup in the show, right? There's that scene that a lot of us love when he raises the cup and he says like, I did it for you, mama. which is a beautiful scene. Okay, it tears me up every time. And there's that like beautiful like zoom in on Shane where, you know, he looks like proud actually of Ilya for winning it. Ilya actually says something of like, I think I highlighted it. He says something, what does he say? He does not say like, I did it for mama. He says like, fuck you guys, I did this, it's mine. It's just a much more like crass thing about doing it. I don't know where I marked it, but anyway, the point is that he's definitely not as like, it's not really a like as sweet of a moment. It's more of him being like, fuck you guys, I did this. But yeah. But anyway, we then have the, you know, we still have the same thing with the Olympics. Sorry, I'm not going to go through every episode of this. I'm sorry. The point being, I'm trying to show points of like the show actually like softens a lot of things better, both for Ilya and Shane. I think the show softens them in moments and it makes choices to do that. Now, it's not necessarily like lessening the impact when it does that. I think it makes it hit even harder because the show honestly like where the episodes end a lot of times is something I wanted to discuss of like the impact of that. And that is something that I mentioned this in a lot of my like weekly wrap-ups when I was living through these week-to-week drops, had me rushing back to the book because the way that Rachel moves you through those interactions are a little kinder, I think, than the show is to you, because Jacob will like end on these absolutely like painful moments, and they still happen in the book, but they're not as like twist the knife, right? Like that's what I'm saying, like the end in Vegas when there's like, we didn't even kiss, right? Like that absolutely like twist in your gut where then we had to wait, right? The 2 weeks, right? Because then we had Scott's episode. And then the end of 4. Like, how can you forget the end of 4 with the Shane fucking Rose and Ilya fucking his hand, and it ends on the everything she said. And like Shane's breath as he's trying to like, he's like imagining Ilya while he's fucking Rose, right? Like those, well, I mean, we don't know that that's what was happening with Shane, but like Ilya, yeah, he fucks his hand in the shower in the book, and he's like pissed that he couldn't go home with someone because he can't stop thinking about Shane and his stupid freckles, and that he was with Rose and he's just so disgusted that he wants to be with Shane so much. And Shane is like annoyed that he doesn't want to escalate things with Rose. He would rather just like talk with her. And so that scene is still there. And Rachel does like kind of like go between their perspectives a couple times really quickly there. Cause she doesn't always like do that in the book. You're not usually jumping that much, but it's still, when that chapter ends, it doesn't like hurt that much, you know? You just go on to like the next thing, right? And in the show, that like hang of that episode is like, fuck, you know? It's like, fuck, right? And granted, it just is going to hit that way because when I'm reading the book, that is a chapter ending. And if you were going to stop the book and like go to bed, that would be like the cliffhanger for the night. But of course, we get to keep reading. And the same thing with the end of the chapter where like I'm coming to the cottage, like that's the end of part 3, and the whole of part 4 is the cottage, like is episode 6, you know, like that is the like last line of that, right? Which is where I think most of us knew that episode 5 was going to end. The fact that this entire like chunk is episode 5 is just nuts. So anyway, moving along, like the point is, you guys, I've spent way too much of my review on that. Like, it's so accurate. That's my whole point. This was my point of my thing. Like, it's scary accurate. What are some other changes? Mention a few more changes, Jen. Okay. I think some of the biggest changes, let me see here. Okay, so the talk with Rose, pretty much the same, except again, softer. love Rose. I love her in the book. That's not changed. She's so like sweet about how she does it. That whole scene, I can't tell you how, like, watching that scene with the, like, where Shane basically comes out to her, how she coaxes it out of him, but like leaves it up to him, but how she coaxes it out of him is so tender. And like, she absolutely leaves it up to him, but she's also like, you know, have you told anyone this? And then like when he says like, I'd rather be like the hole than the peg, and in the show when she's like, wow, that's like the best thing any gay boyfriend has ever told me. And like, granted, yes, they're in public and we're having that conversation, and I'm like, girl, someone's totally recording that and we're all fucked for you recording that. But like, it's so sweet, and it's directly from the book basically. But it's so soft, and the way that that's played is so great. But what's fun too is that when I first read that scene, I read it as funny but sweet. Like I did. I read it as funny but sweet. But it is also there too. Like that scene is also on the page. It's just how, you know, I would love to see like the script of it as well. I mean, Jacob Tierney said he's like, he can't put the scripts online, but like, I wish we could see I want to know what Hudson's like what the prompt was for him to act the way he did. Because in the book, it just says, like, when she says, like, have you been with a man? And he says, yes. And she says, was it different? He says, of course. And I mean, like, was it better? And this is what the little line says. He says, Shane's memory supplied him with flashes of golden brown curls and sparkling hazel eyes and a playful smile and hard muscles and of strong hands holding him down as he was entered and filled. And yeah, he said, yeah, it's better. Like, that's all there. Like, that's what we see on the show. Like the flashbacks of him kissing him. And it's so different of like that scene of like where Shane's like, they're devouring each other, and of like Ilya's smirk and like kissing his forehead. And like that's what that like it is. But the way like his face, like the tears well up, and he's like, it's better. Like, oh, dead. Like it's there, but it's also like how he gives it to us is so fucking good, you know? And it's so beautiful the way he just realizes it. So anyway, so that's like a little different, but it's there too. So anyway, that's another example of like, that's part of what the discussion in the like how Hollywood needs to adapt things is what we're going to talk about in a video. But like Jacob Tierney and the actors of this, they just fucking get it. Because that scene really could have been played more for the comedy. Because it is like, it's funny, but charming, but it's not funny. Because has he ever said those words out loud to even himself? What this man's been going through for, at that point, 8 fucking years. 9 fucking years. Has he ever said that out loud? That it's better with a man, specifically one man, and what the fuck am I doing trying to have sex with a woman, even this woman that, like, I love her, like, she's so kind and sweet, but I'm not meant to be the square peg in the round hole. Like, I'm not meant to be that. I'm meant to be the hole. Like, it's funny to, like, say it, but, like, why am I trying to do this, you know? God, it's so fucking beautiful. And the fact that, like, Rachel Reid wrote that dialogue, and it seems like that would be so cheesy. Because, like, it is, but it wasn't when it was given the care and the proper place in the story. It, like, totally works in that scene. That scene is iconic now. And, like, but she wrote it first. She wrote it first. And instead of seeing that and being, and some writer being like, well, that obviously can't be said by my actors and put on TV. I must rewrite that. I must find a different way to reword that because that can't be on my streaming service. Like, no. It just needed to be acted with compassion and in the proper way. And it makes sense because that's the analogy that's being used in there. And it absolutely works because that's what we're saying. Like, how the conversation set up. Because he's like, I'm sorry, like, we'll work on it. And she's like, it's nothing to fix. You know? There's nothing to fix. You're not broken. We're just not meant to work. Like, oh, so good. Oh, it's so good. Okay, keep going. Okay, other changes. The more stuff with the Russian family, obviously. So in the book, we do see him there. Of course, so many of us who had read the book, as soon as, okay, right? Literally as soon as in episode 1, I should have mentioned that as soon as in episode 1, they had Ilya on the phone with his father and brother, and the subtitles they showed him speaking a Russian on the phone, and they were telling us what he said. I immediately, well, okay, whatever. You guys know I said I watched episode 1 and 2, and then I read the book, okay? And when I read the book, and I know about the conversation where at the end of the conversation he admits, and I'm so fucking in love with you and I don't know what to do about it. We all want to know what he says in the conversation in Russian. Okay. Everybody knew it was coming. And then we've been teased about it in interviews. And Connor had said he learned Russian. That was the hardest part of this for him, almost as much as like learning, well, hockey was also difficult for him to learn, but more so than sex scenes, more so than anything, was he wanted to be as accurate as possible with this 5 pages of Russian dialogue that he had to learn. And holy fucking shit, the fact that this is not possible for Emmys, I hope Canada has some award shows somehow that he'll be able to get, because holy shit. It's so good, you guys. And this is, again, a thing that, like, it's not book accurate, because when you read it in the book, the part where he says is he says in the scene after where he says to Shane, like, okay, I'm done. And Shane says, like, I wish I could learn Russian. And he's like, you could probably learn it in a week, no accent. And you only need to learn, like, get on your knee, blah, blah, blah. When he gets off the phone with Shane, he says he's panicking. He hopes Shane doesn't look up what he said, because the last thing he said was, I'm so in love with you and I don't know what to do about it. And it leads to the spiral that Ilya's starting to go down of, like, I'm in love with Shane and I don't ever want to come back to Russia, and I hate these people here, and I don't want to see my brother, and I don't want to see my stepmother. So all of the things that end up in that dialogue are all things that Ilya, when he's in Russia, he kind of, like, says that Jacob Tierney takes that and what he knows of the character and things that Ilya has thought about, and he put in there. So yes, it's like he wrote that, but it's all that stuff from the book, basically, that is built into Ilya's character. But gosh, I feel like I almost have parts of that in the Russian, like, memorized at this point, because I've listened to it so many times. And if you follow me in other places, I have that monologue. I made a YouTube short out of it. I made a thing on my Instagram out of it. I am just obsessed with it. It's so beautiful. The things where he says of, like, I never want to come back here. They hate me. They just want more, Ilya, more. And my brother fucking hates me, but it kills me that he took care of my father and I couldn't. And then he talks about Svetlana. And so all of that stuff, it definitely works in the context of it, but it definitely is fleshed out more. And to me, it's just so exciting because really in this episode 5, from, I skipped it a little bit because, like I said, I was trying to move on further than this. But, we see it a bit in episode 4, too, with the tuna melt stuff. I know I skipped past that. But this stuff with the Russian stuff, and then what we see next, like with Shane in the hospital, where Ilya's trying to put space, really gives me hints at what season 2 and 3 Ilya could bring, when we're getting to see, because they're older now too. That's the thing. That's the thing that's important to show, of like, they have matured. They're not 17. Now they're 26 and they've lived, and they're professional athletes who've been dealing with pressures, Ilya's now lost 2 parents and he's alone, and there's a lot on the line, and he loves people, someone he can't have. And it's like, do I keep loving this man I can't have, or do I need to cut it off and be done with this? And that's where we're at with him. So anyway, all the scenes with the family are basically made up, but the scenes on the phone with Shane, those ones are real. They're just like fleshed out. Okay. Also a change, Shane does bring up the cottage with him before the hospital. I wanted to point that out. He started dropping hints about that earlier on. Also something that it's not like, Ilya doesn't make as big of a deal about this in the show, which I kind of wish that they did, because it's one of my favorite things at the cottage that happens, is Shane, like, I know he makes a joke about it in the show, but Shane buys that place, you know, with all the jokes about Mr. Real Estate, Mr. Businessman, like that stuff. Like, Shane buys that place because he doesn't want to bring Ilya to his home, because he doesn't want him to be seen bringing Ilya Rozanov to his home, which, I mean, it's smart, but it also digs at Ilya at points that he's a dirty secret. And there are multiple points in the book where Ilya wants to see Shane's home, and the first time he sees his home is through the Skype calls that he has with him, right? Which we love a couple of Skype calls, right? Like with the glasses, like we love the tap tap thing. And the first time Ilya sees in Shane's actual home is through these Skype calls. And that's when Shane then, as like an offering, is like, well, what really feels like home to me is the cottage. And he invites him to the cottage on the Skype call with him. And Ilya is kind of like, okay. The first time he doesn't say anything really to that. He's like, okay, whatever. But he won't bring him to his home in Montreal. And that's something that kind of like eats at Ilya a little bit, that he doesn't. And I bring that up because, like, when we get to the cottage, it will come up again because I'll bring that up there. But, and then the one other thing is then, okay, yeah, because otherwise it's the same. Shane gets hurt. We have that stuff. Also on one of these Skype, there are quite a few Skype calls. There's the Skype sex, which gets alluded to in episode 5. But again, there's no sex in episode 5 at all. Best episode of TV in the entire year of 2025. Was tied for the best episode of history until the trolls got a hold of it and tanked it a little bit. I think now it's sitting at 14, but it was tied for a good week or so with an episode of Breaking Bad for the highest rated episode of television ever. And it's not like it was only 1,000 votes to qualify. I think you needed 10,000 to qualify, but it was up to 54,000 votes. And with critic review, Heated Rivalry as a show has like a fresh tomato, like way up there. Like, this show is being critically acclaimed too, not just audience score. Because once you see the whole show as a whole too, like, it's good, you guys, it's good. Okay, keep going adaptation wise. So we get to the end of this episode, and another change from the book before we get to the cottage part is that in the show, it's really supposed to look like Ilya's going to be going back to Russia. So Ilya has went to the hospital. Shane does the, would you come to the cottage with me this summer? And in the show, that's the first time he asked him. And he's like, Shane, you know I can. He's like, we'll be so alone. It's so private. We together. It's so cute. One of the cutest scenes. I've probably watched a little clip of that one. Also, when Connor Story comes in with his hair slicked in the leather jacket, he looks like Patrick Swayze. Okay? I've done a side-by-side picture of it. He fucking looks like Patrick Swayze. And I just want to eat him. He looks sexy as fuck. I love it. When he walks in. Beautiful scene. And he's like, maybe. That look. And then when the nurse comes in and Shane's just like, oh no. like this angry little kitten. It's so cute. So Shane's out for the cup, and then in the next scene we find out that like Ilya loses out, so now Scott Hunter's making the run for the cup. And now we see why the skip episode was so important, because why the fuck would we care about Scott Hunter kissing a man if we didn't love that man so much? And he does. But before we get to that, in the show we see that Svetlana and a bunch of Ilya's friends are all at his penthouse. And it looks like Ilya's packing to go back to Russia. That's what they make this seem like, is that he's going to be like leaving for good. And in the show, it's more like he doesn't ever want to go back to Russia. Like, he's not going to go back to Russia, but he's also not going to go see Shane. In the book, he's literally alone in his penthouse because, again, Svetlana's not this good of a friend in the book. She's just a friend who he fucks sometimes when he's in New York, because she lives in New York and he lives in Boston. He's just alone, and he's texting with Shane. And the way it's described in the book is that he's just ignored kind of Shane's offer. Like, the offer to go to the cottage is still there, but he's just kind of ignoring it, and he's trying to keep the willpower to say no. But he doesn't plan to ever go back to Russia, where the show hints that he's going to, because Svetlana mentions something that's for his niece, and he's like, well, go pack it. So it seems like he's planning to go to Russia until there's one of the most cinematic endings to an episode of TV that's ever happened. And the same song that belongs to Scott and Kip plays. And the episode's called I'll Believe in Anything. And the song plays. And then You're My, like, all of it, you guys. That last couple, like, it's the last 5 minutes of that episode is burned in my brain. It's so beautiful. And the camera work and the back and forth happens. And then we get, like, literally I have it, like, all highlighted right here because it all happens, where we'll literally read some here. This is what Ilya was thinking, okay? We're just going all in. He said, this is from Ilya's point of view. He's like, he'd had every intention of ending things with Shane. He hadn't been able to do that. Not yet. For now, they could just text each other and tease each other and pretend they were just friends or whatever. Shane's invitation for Ilya to come to his cottage still existed. Shane wasn't pushing it and Ilya wasn't acknowledging it, but there it was. If it weren't the worst idea in the world, Ilya would be on his way to wherever the fuck Ontario already. So then on the TV, the stuff is happening. Ilya reached for the remote and was about to turn it off. So he's alone in his penthouse in the book. There's no one there. When, holy shit, Scott fucking Hunter was kissing a man. Not like one of his teammates on the cheek in an I love you bro kind of way. Scott Hunter was kissing a man wearing street clothes, full on the fucking mouth. It looked like tongues were involved. Ilya's phone buzzed. Jane, holy shit. Jane, are you seeing this? Jane, what the fuck? Is that his boyfriend? Ilya just stared at the television, at Scott Hunter and his probable boyfriend, or Scott Hunter and the random cute man he had pulled out of the crowd. Ilya couldn't process what he was seeing. How could it possibly be real? But there Hunter was, smiling at this mystery man like he was the only thing that mattered in the world, and holding his face as he leaned in to kiss him again. Ilya felt like he was watching all the worst things about his life getting sucked up by a tornado. And then the camera cut away and Ilya looked at his phone. Jane, what is happening? Did he really just do that? Ilya stabbed the call button. There was only one ring before. Holy shit, Ilya, can you believe I'm coming to the cottage? And that's where it ends. Like, it's so fucking epic, you guys. That's how epic it is. That's how epic it is. But in episode 5, there was 18 scenes that are directly from it. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Holy shit. So anyway, I was going to try to go faster, but I'm not because I love it. So then we get to the cottage, which I have now at this point watched 6 times since it came out 5 days ago. I've watched twice with the Empty Netters live reaction, watched it 4 times by myself, and I'll probably watch it a million more times. I don't know. I love it so fucking much. It's so close to being accurate. Really, the only thing they've cut is some sex scenes. And I don't think that's bad at all. So let's talk about what, if anything, they really change about the end of this, and then I'll try to move on to this. This is probably going to be 2 hours. I told you I wanted to gush about it, and we're doing it because it's so fucking accurate, you guys. So good. Okay, so we go to episode 6, and episode 6, The Cottage, aptly described, and pretty much starts the same way. So the show starts directly with Scott's speech. He's accepting the MVP award in Las Vegas in July. So this is just about a month later. And the way like the book starts though, it starts with Shane at the airport. And he's remembering Scott's speech and that he like wrote him an email saying he's proud of him. He of course doesn't admit that, he's also gay, but just telling him he's proud of him and everything. And he's waiting for Ilya to get there. But we start with the speech because, of course, you start with the speech. And yes, people have issues with Kip not actually being there. He's actually at the Kingfisher. And there's been some analysis about why this is. Again, I don't really care. I think it was a production thing, 100%. I actually was kind of like, I missed if they actually, I need to rewatch that interview with Jacob Tierney. Hopefully someone will ask him that. I know he has another interview coming up with another podcast. I think it was a production thing because I think they filmed all that stuff on the stage at the same time that, like, you know, when they filmed the other Vegas stuff with Hudson and Connor when they did their, like, I think they just filmed all that stuff on one day. And then also by filming it at the Kingfisher, you're able to show like the other characters who are with Kip. But it was sad that like Kip wasn't there, but whatever. But he does his speech, which is beautiful. But then we get right into the goodies, okay? And we have Ilya showing up, and he has the worst disguise you've ever seen. Not even a forward ball cap. He's got a backwards ball cap with Ray-Bans on, with ripped sleeve, with sleeveless, looking as big of a jock as you can. Jiminy Crickets. Is also, sorry, side note, because again, I'm parasocial as fuck, and there's just a picture someone shared today that they were on the same flight as Connor Story today, and he looks about as disguised as like Ilya did. Less disguised, literally has headphones and no cap on. And someone got a picture with him at the airport, and I'm like, dude, baby, you cannot be flying around like that. I think you need a hoodie and some disguise too, but that's okay. That's okay. We love him. So yeah, that stuff the same. That's okay. We're talking about differences. Honestly, truly the biggest change about The Cottage, because I do need to wrap up my differences part of this so that I can talk about the other things I want to discuss here. Really what got cut from The Cottage was the sex. Now, in general here, where we're at in the series by 5 and 6, the point is now that we used the sex in the beginning to show that the sex changed them. Like, that was the point. And as a romance reader, I love that they did that, okay? Of course, they did all the flashy skin stuff that got all the attention and all the scorn at the front end. But if you're a romance lover and you pay attention, you know what that did. Because by the end of those sex scenes, they are into fucking mit. Okay, they are intimate. And they are changed by them. They fell in love. And they aren't having the same type of sex that they were having in the beginning. They don't have the same type of distance that they had in the beginning. And so now their sex is more private. And we don't get to see it as much, you know? And I kind of love that. It's like going from this, and it isn't gratuitous in the beginning, but it's like the show is like almost the thing of like, we get to see it all and nothing was hidden from us. And now it's like, we get to see the intimate parts, and like the sex is like not what we need to see because we know they're having sex, you know? Whereas before, the only intimate time they had was when they were having sex. So the show was showing you that, right? And I love that. I love that. But I will say that in the book, there are a few key sex scenes to me as an erotic romance reader that I wish we'd got. But the show still gives us the most important intimate scenes that are non-sexual. And again, no problems with that. No problems with that. I'm just saying that I'm talking about the accuracy part. And there are two scenes in particular that I want to touch on when we're talking about accuracy. And I was hopeful about them because the show's been so good with it. But that's okay. That's okay because we had a lot. So one of them, though, I want to touch on is that pretty quick after we get going, there's two things that happen. There's a sex scene after the like take me to the king size bed one. In the show, they do the like where Ilya like stops him from lowering the shades, and it's so beautiful actually because it, you know, it's the recreation of like the blowjob in the hotel where it's like dark and like Ilya's hand against the wall and he tells Shane to go to his knees and it's dark, and now they do the same thing and like the window, it's light, but in this new one it like cuts to like the burger scene, right? But it's a mirror of their very first time Shane goes down on him, and it's really beautiful imagery to like call back to that of like we were in the dark and now we're in the light. Love that. But in the book, this sex scene actually involves two different very intimate things. One, Ilya leaves a hickey for the first time on Shane. And I love this. I love this, okay? Because they've never been able to do that before. Because they're athletes, they're always stripping down in front of people. And you know, because Shane is never like with women, if someone's leaving hickeys, he's going to get teased about it. Also, he can't leave like bruises because like women don't leave a lot of bruises on men or whatever. You know, if a guy's leaving it on, you're going to see. And so Shane actually asked him to harder, I want to see it later. And they have 2 weeks. So there's time for hickeys to heal. So I love that part of it. So also Ilya in English calls Shane mine. And Shane says, I'm yours. And he says, all of this is mine for 2 weeks. It's mine. And Shane in his head says, forever, if you'll only ask me. So I love that part. And Ilya actually starts saying some endearments to him in English. And up to this point in the book, he's always said his endearments in Russian. So just some more things that are progressing it. And then in this same sexual encounter, after the hickeys, Ilya, I'm sorry, my dear lover, I have to say it, he rims him for the first time, which has never happened in the book. And Shane is so aware of this and what a gift that it is. Like, he literally is saying that, and that he can't believe how intimate this is and like what a gift that this is. And he literally is like, can't control himself. And it also leads into like something really funny because he thinks he's going to come. And so he ends up like, anyway, it ends up being funny and intimate at the same time because he like has to jerk his hip up off the bed and he smashes Ilya in the nose with his ass. So anyway, this was one I was theorizing was going to be in there because it would have been a moment of levity in the scene. But that ended up being in the show, the one where like Ilya's giving him the blowjob while he's on the phone and he like slaps him while he's doing it. That ended up being the funny thing that was in it. But anyway, I know that on reflection of like, that would be so hard to like even imitate that you were showing a rimming scene on TV, and it would just bring up so much if you did it. I know. And Jacob has talked about like there are just certain parts of gay sex we don't want to see, blah 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 blah. I know that. But in the book, because I'm an erotic romance reader, there are parts of beats in sex that show your next level of intimacy. And that's why I'm bringing that up, because to Shane, he acknowledges on the page that this is something we haven't done. And whenever there's in an erotic romance, whenever it's the thing you haven't done yet, it's special. Just as it was special when Ilya fucks him for the first time. They're not just getting each other off. Like, it's the next, like, thing. So, anyway, again, just talking for adaptation-wise, obviously I have no notes against Jacob or whatever, and I'm sure a lot of it just has to do with, like, the boys gave a lot of themselves, okay? They gave a lot of themselves. They didn't need to simulate ass licking in here, but if you read the books, like, whenever a super erotic thing can almost make me cry, I know the author's doing well. So that's one of them. And then the other one that I was hoping they'd do, because again, everything else, every piece of dialogue, fucking beautiful. The other one is after they say I love you. Oops, went too far. Where am I? Bloop, bloop. After they say I love you, you know, he like says in Russian and he says I love you. Holy shit. And Ilya's like, oh, I love this. Ilya's eyes were wide and so scared. And Jane said, I love you too. And he says, thank Christ. Does it feel like agony for you too? And Ilya says, not anymore. And then, so beautiful. In the show, they then have like them like outside as the sun is rising, and it's a beautiful callback to when they were on the beach when the sun was setting. Now they're at the lake and the sun is rising, and like they're getting their sunshine too. It's so beautiful. So then there's just a quick sex scene in the show, which again is fine. It's really like the only one besides the blowjob one, but they do have the line of like, how do we let this happen? But the sex scene in the book here is the other one that I mean was so important, because Jane is like, this is really real. Or Ilya says, is this real? And Shane says it's real, blah, blah, blah. But Shane says, like, I want to be as close to you as possible. And they do kind of like a second try at the sex scene where Shane ran away afterwards. Not a second try. I mean, they've had face-to-face sex scenes since then in the book, but like Ilya sits against the headboard and Shane like rides him, and they literally like look into each other's eyes and say I love you like 15 times while they fuck, and it's literally I like cry my eyes out. And then it's after that one where Shane asks the like, what's your mother's name? And he says she would have loved you and all that stuff. So anyway, otherwise absolutely accurate. And then we talk about the like all the other stuff is like the same, the stuff with the parents. Jacob does add the scene with the mom. Beautiful. That's the one where I leave that up to anyone who's had to come out to someone for how that is. But I mean, I cry every time we even like think about it. I think that's so well done. I love Yuna. Okay, I do. I love Shane's parents, and I'm really happy that was like added, because I do think that in the book, I mean, I love Yuna and David. I love who they will be even more so in the long game, and how they like are there for Shane, and more importantly, how they're there for Ilya. Like, oh, I love how they're there for Ilya, because I mean, Ilya needs that so bad. Like, and I even like how the show even hints at that already. Like, we all know we love that fucking him eating that pasta and him being given Russian vodka and pasta by David and Yuna. And while Shane's freaking out and he's just shoveling that spaghetti in. I truly couldn't believe he was doing that. And then getting confirmation from Jacob Tierney in an interview that yes, he was eating that spaghetti, and he ate 16 like helpings of spaghetti while they filmed that scene, because it was like the last couple days of it, and he didn't have to take his shirt off anymore. And I'm like, good for you, babe. Good for you. Ate that spaghetti like a champ. And for a guy who doesn't eat carbs or cheese, way to go. But I just loved seeing that. And then, yeah, it ends with them driving away. So where the book ends is literally at the end of chapter 26 in the book, which the book has 27 chapters and an epilogue. So really the only parts left of the book is like this much, okay? So for adaptation wise, what is left out, just to let people know, is that where the book stops is that they go back to the cottage and like they have a drink and they chill and they really confirm that, like, you know, Ilya is still looking after him again. You know, it's kind of a continuation of that like moment of like boyfriend's here, parents here, like confirming like that this is what we want. And then it skips ahead the 16 months to I think, is it their first game against each other? I don't know, but they're like announcing their foundation and everything, and it's like getting started. So it's like it's happening and everything. So and I think that makes perfect sense. And listening to all the reasons, I know like a lot of us, like my friend Joe, we were even talking about, a lot of us wanted them to maybe be like stepping up to the podium to talk about it and seeing maybe like the like back of Ilya's New Jersey or something like that or whatever. And I don't have a single, I think it was perfect because they did not know they'd get more. And I didn't think people should be teased for more. I think, again, as a romance reader, a romance lover, I think somehow this man managed to give 2 stories, HEAs, in one 6-episode run. I think this could stand as a, like, this is a, you know, 6-hour epic double HFN. I know, because I know it's not. They're still in the closet. I am, again, this is the part where like this isn't my like queer experience. I'm talking about this of like adaptation wise, and this HFN, this happy for now here, fully fit into this. Okay, I want to be very careful where my lines lie of like, I'm not making the greater thing of like, this was the most romantic happy for a queer couple ever. No. I'm not trying to make that line or say that this should be more romantic than it is or whatever. I just mean for what this was and what it did, like it did the job exactly. And I couldn't ask for a more beautifully told story of translating what was in here to there and showing Shane and Ilya's story, like, and giving them a happy ending for this version of it, the happy for now of this. And if we weren't to get more, if this hadn't have blown up the way it did, like if this had just been this little run of them, like, man, of course we want more, and we'd be like, I need more. But if this wouldn't have felt like so many other shows that just get abandoned before they're done, you know? This wouldn't have felt like so many other ones where we just got fucked and like left to dry. Like this would have felt like a happy for now, and we feel good about what's going to happen for them, right? And I love that. So yeah. Okay, I need to continue on to some of these other questions because gosh darn, I knew this would be a horrendously long video, but so yeah, that was my answer. But how accurate is it an hour into this? The answer is it's the best I've ever seen. Ever, you guys. I cannot be I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being dramatic. I have for 20 years been aware of like adaptations and what they are, and I don't know of one that's better. Okay? And the way that I am saying this is like, it is so well done. It honors the source material as well as it makes the changes it needs for this like time, as well as for, you know, with the actors that it had, with the money that it had. And I think it even elevates parts of it. I think there are changes that are made that are good, that, again, I've heard other people talk about even better. I think that, and I'll talk about this in the ending part 2 of like, I think there are things, you know, Rachel Reid, I'm sure there are things she would change, you know, about a book she wrote 6-7 years ago, right? Like man, there's some people on X who just like want to go nuts on her of like, of course there's a microscope on these books. These were some of the first books that she wrote. Like Game Changer was the first one she wrote. Heated Rivalry, the second book that she wrote. And to now have these stories like literally be under the biggest microscope possible, there are things that are not perfect. There's representation that is not perfect. Like none of that's going to happen. And I think that Jacob Tierney has been super respectful and also very like, you know, he gives all the flowers that's due, but he deserves some too, because there are things that I think he has elevated a lot. There's things that actors have done that are definitely put rose-colored glasses, pun intended, onto some of this. Like, that's the thing for me is that, like I said, I was pretty just so about what I read when I read Game Changer. It was not the best thing I'd ever read. It was just all right. And even Heated Rivalry, I can never separate it from the show Heated Rivalry. I can never do that, right? It's the same. I always say that with my experience of Outlander, right? Like I've gotten better with that because I'd only seen 8 episodes of Outlander before I started the Outlander books. So I've obviously read a lot more Outlander than watched Outlander show. But with Heated Rivalry, I watched 2 episodes and they were already imprinted in my brain by the time I started. So I was already starting to make like impressions of them based off of what I was reading. And I was already like inserting them into it. You know, I just couldn't help myself because they were cast very well. And so even the differences, I was already like making those changes. I won't pretend otherwise. I don't have to. It's my reading experience. I can do what I want. And other people won't have that same experience for them. But that's the reading experience I had, and I was fine with it. So anyway, so that goes to my number 4 that I said I would answer. Should you read it or watch it first? And this is a controversial opinion to me, but I think that if you haven't already read them, I think you should just watch it. Personally, I think you should just watch it. Because it's a quick watch experience now. All of them are out. All the episodes are out now. I was telling people when all the episodes weren't out, to read the book, you know, if you wanted to buy the ebook, but just watch it. Like really, just watch it. Because it's so close. Like I'm telling you, it's so close to it that I don't think it spoils it. Like now I've read this book 3 times and the show doesn't spoil the book for me. Like in most scenarios, I would say read the book first so that the show doesn't ruin it for you. But like it didn't for me. But that's my personal experience. Like other people disagree and they'll be like, do it. Like my friend Jo, only 5 of the episodes were out for her. Or 4 of them were out for her. So she did read the book first and then watch it. So like, it was fine. Like some people, you will just always be a read the book first. Well, then do it. Then you don't need my opinion on it. You know what you want to do. You want to. But those who genuinely are like unsure or you're not like sold on, like you don't really like hockey romance or you don't really like blah, 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 then watch it first. Like really but if you don't have HBO Max or you don't like know if you'll whatever, then go for it. But I'm just telling you, like, the book is not perfect. It does read a little bit like, I don't know, Rachel Reid has an interesting way of writing it. And to me, Ilya and Shane can be a little bit stilting to fall for them. And I just had a better time when I was picturing Shane and Ilya from the show. I had a better time reading it once I was locked in on them. And it was a better experience for me. So yeah, that I personally think you should watch it first. Because once you do, like, you're going to be hungry for more. And I even think you could watch it and jump right into the long game if you want to. My personal take. But, maybe don't do that. I don't know. You could watch it, read the whatever. So anyway, I'm going to move on to the next question, but I think it's up to you. But again, you're asking my personal take, watch the show. But if you're not sure if you want to pay for it, then read the book. Then you already know the answer. That's why that question's tricky for me, because I'm like, I don't know. But in the case of like, would the show, like, is it so inaccurate that you should read the book first? Because then what, like, they're so close, you guys. Like, seriously, that's why I did this. That's why I did this. That's why I did this. Every one of these tabs is a spot where it's the exact scene on the page. Every one of those. And in most cases, it's where, let's find a good one. In most cases, it's where there's exact dialogue. Like every one of these, the pink lines are where the action that the character does is exactly on the screen. And the yellow and the blue are exact words. Okay, exact words that Shane and Ilya say on the page. So like, it's fucking amazing, okay? Five of the 6 episodes and over like 120 scenes exactly on there, okay? So, yeah, definitely recommend. Number 5, should you start with book 1 or book 2 first? So, this is the other thing too. I think book 1 is even weaker. Like I said, that is her very first one that she did. It's rough. It's rough. I don't think the narration was super great either. That was back when I was like newer to like audiobooks. Not like new. I wasn't new to audiobooks then, but the audiobook narration for these like isn't great either, because yeah. That's a whole other discussion we don't have time for. I'm coming up to 2 hours for this book. Or for this video. I personally would, some people say that like you should read Heated Rivalry, then Game Changer, then The Long Game. And honestly, for timeline wise, you definitely could do that, because like I said, timeline wise, Heated Rivalry comes way before. Even if you're talking about the show timeline, like Heated Rivalry starts in 2008 and goes to July of 2017. And then Game Changer goes from January of 2017 to June of 2017. And then The Long Game goes from, like, I don't even remember. It was like 2018 to 2022 or something like that. I don't remember. But even that way. So I don't know. But again, I haven't reread book 1 just because I got enough out of the show that I needed to get. But some people are suggesting read book 2, book 1, book 6 if you want to just do stuff related to the show. But otherwise, just read them in order if you want to. I have downloaded one of the other books in the series, but honestly, I've been watching a lot of people who've like read the whole series, and there's really only one of the other books that I'm interested in. There's really only one other one that I'm interested in based on what I've heard. So I may only read one of the other ones, but the other books do take place on the Ottawa Centaurs, which is the team that Ilya will switch to. I don't know what they'll end up calling it. It probably won't be the Centaurs, because that's the other note I have at the bottom here, is when the other change made is that the New York Admirals, which is Scott's team, they have the same name. The New York Admirals is the New York Admirals. But the Montreal Voyageurs is Shane's team. That went from the Voyageurs to the Metros. And the Boston Bears is Ilya's team. That went from the Bears to the Raiders. So that's another difference too. So I don't know if it'll be the Ottawa Centaurs or like what that will be. But when Ilya switches teams for Shane at the end of Heated Rivalry, all of the other players are on that team. And those players, a bunch of them come out. And so by the time we get to the Long Game, Ilya actually has like, I think, 3 other players on his team who are gay, or queer, so cool. But anyway, so that's up to you if you should go 1, 2, or if you're gonna go all the way through, but I just have read 2 and 6, and like I read 1 a while ago. As I've said, I don't plan to reread it, but those are a few different paths people have done, is they do 2, 1, 6, or 1, 2, 6, or you can go all the way through, whatever you want. And then I've kind of answered this already. Should you jump into the Long Game? I recommend that you do. Because even if you see some people who do, like, they lay out the timeline, like, the Heated Rivalry timeline, like, it goes over the top of so many others because it takes up so much. our boys pine away for a long time. Like, their love story goes from 2008 all the way up to like 2020, the present and everything. So, if you want to follow this love story, you go Heated Rivalry and then The Long Game. So, okay. Now, the final thing I was going to mention, though, and mine as well. This video is going to take me a shit ton of time to edit and all that good stuff anyway. So, what I predict they're going to do for season 2 and maybe season 3. Because for sure we know we're going to, as I mentioned, the main 2 men are contracted through 3 seasons if they get picked up for 3 seasons. And Jacob Tierney keeps, like, in a few places, like, hinting that they'll get 3, which, good Lord, why wouldn't they, with just how big it's all gotten? Like, that would be crazy if they didn't. But he also has said, like, he has an idea in mind of how many seasons there would be because he wants to keep Shane and Ilya as the main story. He said some of the other characters from the Game Changers would maybe be brought in. So does that mean he would do like 1 episode arcs for people like he did for Scott and Kip? Would we see more Scott and Kip? Would we, what would we do, right? And so that meaning though, and like, I really liked actually the take that Chandler Ainsley had, which she's one of the videos I'm planning to link anyway. She did a read of all of the books just recently. She read them all, so she's someone I'm planning to link her video because she had some really cool takes in hers. And she actually has the take that she thinks there should only be 1 more season. But her reasons are good. And honestly, like, the thing is, I think that a 6-episode season for this was the best. Like, it was so tight, you guys. Like, as much as I want those scenes I mentioned that I missed, it didn't need it. Jacob Tierney knew which stuff was important, and the reason this show slaps as good as it does is there was no filler. There was not a second of filler. There are scenes that I wanted, but there wasn't anything else that we had to have. There was things I wanted because I just want to spend more time with the characters, but there was nothing we had to have. He had everything we had to have, and it worked. And there's a reason why this series will just keep being like watched forever and ever and ever, and it works so tight as this like really bingeable perfect story. And of course I want it to go on forever, but like, because this is a romance and because he understands romance, if it goes on forever and the main core is Ilya and Shane, we have to watch Ilya and Shane be tortured forever. And they don't deserve that. This is a romance. And we have a man, a creator, a writer, creator, and director who understands romance. He proved that with this. And so I don't want 5 seasons of that. And sure, he could shift the focus to another couple, but that's not what we want. That's not what we want from Heated Rivalry. We love these 2 actors. They are the heart and soul of this, okay? They just are. And I feel like if they shift it away, we're always going to be wanting to see more of that couple anyway. That's who we want. So, well, I personally think I could see a 2-season arc. And he also pointed out too, there probably won't be more episodes. I could see there being like 8, but honestly, if there was 2 more seasons of 6 episodes each, I could see it happen. Having, of course, as I've said, read The Long Game. Again, this is like kind of spoiler, but this is a spoiler video. This book is only a year long. This one's only a year. So there's some room if they start this story earlier, because it picks up 3 years after Heated Rivalry. So if we start like before where this epilogue was, because like I said, this ends before the epilogue. There's like the dinner with Hayden that we don't do. And it skips 16 months to the epilogue, which is when they announce it. Ilya's already been traded. They're starting the thing. So like, if we don't skip ahead 3 years before we start the season, like, that's all stuff that Jacob could, like, I mean, Rachel said it, like, Rachel could come up, like, not Rachel, that Jacob could come up with for us. Like, there's room for that to be some episodes of how that happens. Like, Rachel just glosses over all that stuff. We don't see it. But the long game, a lot of shit happens, but this is only a year's worth of time. And he fit 9 years into 6 episodes, right? Not that there isn't a lot to get to. Like, there is. And it's a lot of heavy stuff. Whew, there's a lot of heavy stuff in the long game. But, you know, we don't want episodes and episodes of pain. Like, this is a romance. And what made Heated Rivalry work is that we dealt with heavy stuff, but we didn't just like dwell in it constantly. You know, like there was beautiful moments and like lightness that came in. So honestly, the more I thought about what Chandler said, like, I mean, gosh, it would piss people off a lot because people think they want it to go on forever. But honestly, I think they could do it in 3 seasons. I think they could, but I think it should stay at like 6 episodes. Because with romance, there's a reason why romances do best in like duets or trilogies when they're the same couple, right? Because we want them to have their HEA, and if you drag them out forever, they don't get one. We don't want to have to see our boys be in the closet forever. Well, I mean, they're not in the closet, but their romance be in the closet forever. That ruins the purpose of romance. And so there's so much to dig into, and I want that. So unless, and she said this, that she wouldn't write a story just because. And so maybe the answer is that, because she has said too, that if there was anyone she would trust to themselves write the next phase of Shane and Ilya, it would be Jacob. She would trust him to do that. You know, if the next phase was like, what's life after being out? If that was our 3rd season, holy shit, okay, buckle up. Let's see what being out is like. Okay. But honestly, I think that Chandler's take is right. And I didn't think I would say that, you know, because we're greedy bitches. It's why I read 4 fucking fanfics in December, because I wanted to read more Hollanov. But those are fanfics, and they can be having sex in every chapter and adopt 15 children, and Shane can be a coach and Ilya can be a stay-at-home dad. But like, that's not what the structured romance is, right? So that's what I think of the future of the long game, is that I do think it should be limited because we're writing romance. And that's, again, something that I'll talk about in my other video I'm going to make, is how Hollywood ruins adaptations and what they try to do to make money off of the romance community, and why I'm pretty pissed off with things they've done, and what Heated Rivalry did right, which is less was more in this case, because it made really distinct choices to give us this amazing product. And sometimes what we think is better when we see we're getting more episodes or more seasons of something is actually just a cash grab that ends up hurting the IP that we love so much. And that takes a really wise person with conviction and a vision to not be swayed by the money that gets thrown at them. And that's a hard decision. I definitely don't overlook that at all. But I'm going to tap out with this. Like I said, I will have another video coming. I can't believe this is 2 hours. If you've stuck in all the way, I fucking love you. Thank you so much. And if you've watched the show too, please leave your thoughts down below. And let me know if you think it's as accurate as I did. Let me know if I've convinced you to give it a try. I mean, I know I went through a lot of spoilers in this, so maybe you didn't make it all the way through if you did. These are now available. I'm pretty sure Harlequin's fully stocked and the other places are stocked, so I'll leave links to these if you want to get your copies. I'll leave a link to HBO. Sign up, watch it. I'm telling you, I hope I convinced you to give it a try. Also, have you listened to the Quinn original that Connor Story and Hudson Williams are narrating, where they're fae princes who fall in love? Because, girl, go do it. Go do it. Okay, that's enough. I love you guys so much. I hope you're having a wonderful new year, and I'll see you again soon.